Joining us now, MSNBC host Jonathan Capehart, associate editor for The Washington Post and a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. Brendan Buck, former aide to House Speakers John Boehner, and Paul Ryan, and an MSNBC political analyst. Okay, Brendan, this isn't the first time we've seen an outgoing lawmaker publicly push back against Trump. Mitt Romney, Congresswoman Liz Cheney, Ken Buck, to name a few, although which came first, the chicken or the egg, the decision to retire, the criticism, and then the retirement. But what do you think? Better late than never, or too little too late?
Yeah, it's remarkable how freeing it can be, right, when you don't have to run for re-election. I mean, you can go further back. Jeff Flake, Bob Corker. I think the question here, though, is how much actual juice does someone like Tillis now have in the party? I think there's a lot of senators who would love to talk like that. I'm certain that there are, but they all live under those constraints. That is, you have to have the support of the same people who love Donald Trump. And the world just looks very different politically when you do. I imagine Tillis is going to sound a lot like Mitch McConnell, who no longer has to worry about voters. And that maybe that, gets you to 3 or 4 dissident Republican senators, but it certainly doesn't change the overall sentiment of the party, who all feels like they need to follow his lead. The impact of this policy-wise is probably not great. I mean, they just got through the biggest thing they needed to do throughout the year without him. So I imagine Tom Tillis, I'm glad he's speaking his mind, but is probably going to find himself as a bit of an outcast for the rest of his term.
Yeah, Jonathan, you heard Senator Tillis draw that red line for future Trump nominees who need to be confirmed in the Senate, but who's listening, right? What do you think the real impact is?
Well, look, I think I agree with what Brendan says. I mean, his impact within the Republican conference in the Senate is going to be minimal, if at all. But I will say this. I will give Senator Tillis mad props for saying the quiet part out loud during the run-up to the passage of what is now the so-called big, bold, beautiful law, the big law that they just passed. He was the one who went around to his Senate colleagues, Republican colleagues, with a sheet of paper that said, listen, if you do this, if you pass this, here are the hundreds of thousands of people in your state who are going to lose health care if you do this because of the cuts to Medicaid. He was out there trying to convince his Republican colleagues not to go down this road, and in the end, earn the ire of President Trump. And then came the chicken and egg thing. He then decides, I'm not going to run for re-election. I think that no matter what happens, it is important, whether it's the liberation of saying, I'm not going to run again, that you still have people, you have Senator Tillis out there saying true things. And finally finding the courage. He shouldn't have voted to confirm Pete Hegseth to begin with. But now that he's found religion, I want him to still continue to speak out and talk about how wildly unqualified that particular person is. And I hope he stays true to his vow to not confirm anyone who says that they would I think, parole or, who doesn't believe that the 2020 election was legitimate or believes in January 6th. Need more courage.
Yeah. Well, Brendan, Senator Tillis was also asked to weigh in on the race to replace him in the Senate. I don't know how much sway he has with voters, but here's what he said about disgraced former Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson.
There's no way if he became the nominee in North Carolina I could possibly support him. Of course, I wouldn't support the Democrat nominee. I would just have to take a pass.
What if it were Laura Trump? There's talk of her running.
They've all got to decide. Our state is very difficult for Republicans to win. In both cases, I've won by fewer than 2 points. So they need to be really smart about the name on the ballot and the profile on the ballot to have an opportunity to win.
To that point, Brendan, will Republicans, especially in a place like North Carolina, especially in a place where there are purple districts for congressional members, will they need to consider what seems to be a mood shift, an electorate shift, as they're looking at not who to vote for in the general, but who they nominate in the primary and back with their money?
Well, the question is, are we going to learn our lesson? I mean, the country is littered with failed Republican Senate candidates. I mean, Republicans should have like 57, 58 seats right now. In places like Georgia, where I'm from, you have 2 Democratic senators. In Arizona, you have 2 Democratic senators because we keep nominating people who can't win general elections. Hopefully, we've learned that lesson by now. Certainly, with Mark Robinson, there was a blown governorship right there. So, you don't have to look far for lessons from here. I don't think, again, Tom Tillis is going to, as you said, going to have a lot of sway. But I'm hoping that the Trump political operation is a little more sophisticated at this point and understands that, in particular, North Carolina, yeah, that's a tough seat to keep. And it was why he was so dumb to chase Tillis out. Like, Tillis might have stepped down anyway. But Donald Trump going after one of your most vulnerable sitting senators who's up for re-election was just, shows that he plays off emotion more than any strategic thinking. So I don't know that I have any confidence that they've learned their lesson, but hopefully by now we realize who you nominate matters quite a bit.